It's good to have you join us on Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African news network, TOS Television. Again, my name is Merciful Ajinamo. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We have Mr. Felix with us today. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. We have a couple of stories that have made the headlines in the past 24 hours. And let's begin from the Guardian newspaper. The banner headline there says, hashtag NSAS panel report, US Falana demand accountability. We have a couple of others. Defense chief faults procedure of release. Insists armed forces are professionals. Governor yet to read submitted report, says spokesman. PDP demands prosecution of killers, collaborators. Apologize to Lagosians over Lekki Tollgate shootings. Bode George Oje Sanwo-Olu, ex-CDHR boss, raises concern over Lagos committee to review panel report. What's your take on the report that we have right now on the NSAS issue? Yesterday we had stories of this report, and it generated a lot of controversies in the last 48 hours. What do you think of it?
Thank you very much. To be sincere, I think it shouldn't generate any controversy.
Okay.
Because the government of Lagos State set up the body to go on a fact-finding mission, and at the end of the day, they were able to come up with what the majority of the citizens are expecting. And at the end of the day, they summarize everything to be a genocide. So there's nothing controversial in the whole thing. But what I just feel is that the federal government needs to apologize to the people, because when this thing happened, we saw how they came out to the people speaking for the government. We saw the way they came out and trying to rubbish the whole thing, something that we saw live. And with what happened yesterday now, with the submission of the report, now CNN and the likes, Amnesty International, and those people who gave those reports, now what are we now going to be saying? Are we going to be saying now that
we have changed our mind or
we've
something?
changed our mind, so we just have to be serious with the way we handle things in this country.
All right, let's talk about other stories. Of course, on page 3 of The Guardian, you see court rules on suit seeking Soludo's disqualification November 30th. That story, of course, not too long ago, we saw Soludo, Professor Charles Soludo, emerge as the victorious OL candidate in Anambra. And now we're seeing a story on court ruling to seek his qualification November 30th. What do you think of this back and forth in Nigeria's election system?
As long as the matter is in courts, we'll leave it at that for the court to handle the whole thing. But to be sincere, anyone that is aggrieved, the court is there to take anyone.
Listen to it.
So just go. If you have a case to bring before then, and let's see what happens. But I can tell you, if they are having party issues, they had it before the election. And I only hope that they've succeeded in handling that. And if they've not, then that shows that his emergence is hanging in the balance.
All right. Please do what to read. Take a copy of this and read about the stories in details. Justice Orderly Wike demands immediate prosecution of invaders. That story can be found on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. I have a couple of other stories right there on The Guardian. Just grab yourself a copy of it. And now the Daily Sun. The first story we see there on the very top is Igbo leaders have lost touch with people. That's Ohanis is saying that. Of course, you can get that on page 3 of the Daily Sun. The banner headline again is talking about anger over Lagos NSAS report. Of course, we spoke about that topic. Grab yourself a copy and read about it. Gunmen bomb magistrate court in Imo State. That can be found on page 4 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Reps move to avert fresh ASU strike. You can get it on page 7. And Zik, Nigeria still grappling with poor management of diversity differences. That's coming from Jonathan. Restructuring better than succession. Fayemi tells Igboho, Kanu, others. That can be found on page 3. And federal government warns unions against picketing. Of course, that can be found on page 8 of the Daily Sun newspaper. This day, the front page right there from the very top, we see MFLA CBN disbursed 3 trillion naira loans to firms, households in 1 year. Says there's strong synergy between monetary and fiscal authorities. And now we'll see Nigeria's e-naira attracting global attention, says IMF. The very front page right there, the banner is NSAS. It's time for healing, say UN, US CDS cautions against denigrating army. We have two riders. Peterside flays lies. Falana calls for implementation of report that can be found on this day. The Nigerian Tribune newspaper right there, we see 10-year-old boy, 4 others die in Lagos gas explosion that can be found on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Just in Lagos State, in just the last couple of months, we've been seeing stories at this. Will I want to call them environmental hazard? But this happened in Lagos, and we can see pictures on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. We can see some gas tanks right there, and the area where the explosion happened. What do you think of this story?
We all know that Lagos is a choked up city, and carelessness too from individuals could cause all these things. But I feel like what happened the other time, leaving out the issue of collapsed buildings and the rest. But like these that happen, I think there should be more caution and more measures to be taken, to undo some of all these things that could easily cause explosion, like the incident that happened last week. We were made to understand that the gas cylinders were packed in a place, and who knows, maybe carelessly something must have triggered fire into that place. So I think since it's a state like that is choked up, the government should try as much as possible to see what they can do, to also come up with some cautionary measure for people to follow, and like people stashing up things. I think the government should try as much as possible to find a way to monitor things like this. So many are just handling these things. They don't know the things to do to protect against any hazard that could come out. So the government has more to do.
All right, still on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, we see from the very top there, Autumn of Benue is saying electoral act amendment direct primary is easier to manipulate by governors. That's what he's saying on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. He says he wants Buhari to deny assent, says 1,700 civilians, 100 security killed in Benue. We see something again on that front page, $5.8 billion Mambila project. Firm waives $500 million penalty for Nigeria. Federal government celebrate. Of course, from the banner headline right there, we still see the same story we've read out, talking about the NSAS. Just grab yourself a copy of what happened and read about it. Unilorin expels 400 level students who beat lecturer to stupor. We can get that story on page 26. Killings in Sokoto by bandits, needless violence. And that's Buhari saying right there. Criminals won't go unpunished, he says. We can grab that on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. 25-year-old lady, 5 others jailed. 141 years for drug trafficking in Edo, Ogun State. That can be found on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune. National Assembly tasks military to mobilize against insurgency banditry. We can get that on page 3. NASU threatens strike over alleged bias in payment of earned allowances. Of course, that's what we can find on page 30. And let's go over to the Punch newspaper. The banner headline right there, of course, talking about NSAS says, federal government lists loopholes. UN, US, others demand sanctions. Sanwo-Olu advocates speed on white paper. Amnesty calls for prosecution of attackers. There are inaccuracies in reports. We await white paper, says federal government official. We can get all of that on the Punch newspaper. Federal government blames theft, insecurity, others as oil production plunges. That can be found on page 17. And Gbajabiamila summons ministers, ASU as lecturers threaten fresh strike. That can be found on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. And of course, we see something on the page 12. 300 monarchs backing Tinubu for 2023 presidency. That's a campaign coordinator saying that. Can get the story on page 12 of the Punch. Suspected herdsmen kidnap, kill Ondo butchers, tricked to buy cows. That can be found on page 4. And then lastly, we see a federal government saying, we appealed case of Nigerian girl wrongly jailed in Cote d'Ivoire. We can get that story on page 20. Now, don't forget, you can also get updates on all of these stories on our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. And also follow us across all our social media platforms. That is at TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, Instagram. And please don't forget also to subscribe to our YouTube page so you do not miss out on our amazing content. Thank you for joining us on Nigeria Now today again. My name is Merciful Ajinomo. It's always a pleasure to have you. Please come again tomorrow and watch us as we bring you details of front pages happenings in the country.